So if you take away the oil revenue, if you restrain Putin's shadow fleet, his economy kind of collapses and falls apart like a drunken conscript. This is what could happen. The question is, will it happen? And if it does happen, how does it happen? So let's start to look at this. So I've made this case that this could ruin Putin. And I didn't want to put a timetable on it. Like I was thinking like, hey, this could collapse in a number of months, but I don't know how many months. So I wasn't going to go quite there, but it could be ruinous to Putin and his war plans. Okay, we're going to start here to recap everything that's been happening because Pyotr Kurzin in his Geopolitics channel summarizes what's been happening. I'm going to show you like a minute and a few seconds of what he said, and like he's nailing it. Listen to
Russia's
this.
Vladimir Putin and America's Donald Trump are seemingly on a new path of nuclear tension as the US president repositions submarines closer to Russia. And no, it's not because of some satellite intelligence or major missile alert. It's because of the one and only Dmitry Medvedev, that former Russian president and current professional provocateur or serial tweeter who made some vaguely threatening remarks online. Indeed, this might well be the first time a social media spat has flirted with nuclear brinkmanship and actually changed policy.
Now, there's a couple interesting things here. One, it is social media spat that is causing much of this, but there's a cause before that, and that is that Donald Trump has shifted his position, at least his rhetoric, and then allowing some arms sales that he didn't allow before, and so something has shifted, and then the social media, and then, well, this.
But what makes this, of course, more dangerous is that it's happening against the real backdrop of a war grinding on in Ukraine. Peace talks between the sides that have completely disintegrated, and these two leaders, Trump and Putin, with emotional immaturity and ego-based approach to decision-making, who seem to think that unpredictability is a virtue.
That is interesting because I think Trump does think like that unpredictability is a positive thing. And it's more beyond just the idea of strategic ambiguity. It's this unpredictability as a virtue. What a great way of saying this. Just a little bit more and we'll move on.
So in this video, I wanted to unpack what's actually going on here. Why Trump's threats are actually more than potentially his own theatre, why Putin is stalling and surprisingly quiet, and why the longer this drags on, there is a real risk of miscalculation.
Okay, so if you want to see the rest of that, you can follow this. His name is Pyotr, Pyotr, Kurzin, Geopolitics. Just look that up and you can see the rest of that in that video. But he's right. Like the longer this drags on, the more there's a risk for miscalculation. And it's more than just theater. Okay, we're going to start with this. Peskov reacted to Medvedev's statements. He said, no one should care what Medvedev says, except Medvedev is saying things in a system that is based on state media control, where when he's saying something, he's only saying it because the boss is allowing it to. It's not like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, which doesn't care what president's in charge. They can say whatever they want. That's not the way it works in Russia. And so this is very important. Okay, so, all right, Kremlin update. This is from Sputnik, which is more controlled Russian media. Kremlin update, Putin may meet U.S. envoy, according to Peskov. About Putin, Witkoff meeting is not ruled out this week, and it looks like that's going to happen. About nuclear rhetoric, Russia urges caution on nuclear-related statements. When has Russia ever urged caution on nuclear-related statements? Well, it's not till Trump pushed back on it, right? This is interesting. This is different. U.S. sub on duty, well, that's a constant process. Subs are always on duty. Yeah, but they weren't just being sent to be parked somewhere closer to Russia, right? By the way, the nuclear subs in over on the East Coast that were affected by the hurricane, it looks like there was damage to the port. We don't know about damage to nuclear subs in Russia, but damage to the port, certainly. So that's a new thing. Trump's remark, they said there was no escalation, just sensitive topics being discussed. No, this is an escalation. About Ukraine, political and diplomatic settlement is preferred. I haven't heard that before. And about Putin, Zelensky talks possible after expert preparations. Okay, we'll see how that all plays out, but it's a different tone from the Kremlin. Now, the Russian papers are dismissing things. Donald Trump's announcement on moving nuclear submarines closer to Russia was dismissed as PR and political games, or a temper tantrum, or theater and Trumpian. One paper described as this: the U.S. president both threatens Russia and tries to do a deal with it. Well, that's true, but that's new that he threatens while trying to do the deal. That's the key thing to listen for. Okay, this is Trump talking about, like, he was asked, how do we avoid sanctions? Can we avoid sanctions? Hear what he has to say, and I'm only going to play about 20 seconds of it, so just listen.
Steve Witkoff's message will be to the Russians. Is there anything they can do to avoid sanctions at this point?
Yeah, get a deal where people stop getting killed. They had a number that just came out that a tremendous number of Russian soldiers are being killed. And likewise, Ukraine, a lower number, but still thousands and thousands of people. And now we're adding towns where they're being hit by missiles. So it's a lot of people being killed in that ridiculous war. And, you know, we stopped a lot of countries from war, India and Pakistan.
Okay, and he's going to go into a litany of all the peace deals that he's made and that sort of thing. Hold that for just a second. But Putin's in a bind. Think about the bind that Putin's in. Like, you can't really stop. You can't, because then bad things happen to the economy. You can't really make a deal because making a deal is going to cause you to stop. You can't look like you're knuckling under to the threats here. You can't let the oil revenue drop off if the tariffs go on, secondary tariffs or secondary sanctions go on to these other countries, which create tariffs to the U.S. and they decide not to play. Like, he's in a real bind. Now look at this: Armenia and Azerbaijan are poised to announce their intention for peace later this week in Washington. Wait a minute, you're Armenia and Azerbaijan. You're right on, if you're Azerbaijan, right on Russia's border, just below Chechnya. You're in Russia's sphere of influence. The last time this happened, Putin was presiding, and now it's Washington that's making the peace deal. That's a real bad sign for Putin as far as losing influence in the region. And then we see this. This is U.S. Ambassador Whitaker, ambassador to NATO, Whitaker. Listen to just 15 seconds of what he has to say here.
It's impossible to get in the mind of Vladimir Putin because it's sick and twisted and probably not logical. But, I'm guessing that he doesn't want to take on the most powerful military in the world, which is the United States of America.
Yeah, I'm thinking he doesn't, as much as he wants a saber rattle about it. Now, that's one message from the United States. Now, the coherent messages that you're seeing again and again from Trump and from his administration are really telling. Here's: Trump considers it unacceptable that India continues to purchase Russian oil. This is from his deputy chief of staff, Miller. I talked about him yesterday. This is Miller. He is all MAGA all the time. He doesn't really care about Ukraine, but he cares about the tariffs, which I think is boneheaded, but he thinks he cares about the tariffs. Listen to this.
He said very clearly is that it is not acceptable for India to continue financing this war by purchasing the oil from Russia. People will be shocked to learn that India is basically tied with China in purchasing Russian oil. That's an astonishing fact. India portrays itself as being one of our closest friends in the world, but they don't accept our products. They impose massive tariffs on us. We also know they engage in a lot of cheating on immigration policies that is very harmful to American workers. And of course, we see again
he wants to impose these tariffs on India. He relishes the thought. Honestly, I think he'll be disappointed if India backs away and stops taking Russian oil because he wants the tariffs on India. That's my read. Okay. Russia's oil exports are falling fast in the first 7 months of 2025. And this is Timothy Milovanov. He is the former Minister of Economy of Ukraine talking. In the first 7 months of 2025, Moscow shipped 4% less crude than in 2024, 7% less than in 2023. That's 30 million barrels gone, reports G. Captain on Bloomberg source. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but let's look at what else is happening. On July 27th, weekly exports dropped 520,000 barrels a day, the steepest slump in more than 6 months. Shipments from the Baltic fell to the lowest since December 2022. Only 24 tankers left port that week, down from 31 the week before. So this is costing real money. Export value crashed 17% that week, down 230 million to 1.14 billion. Urals crude dropped 50 cents to 58.60 per barrel. They really needed to be at like 80 a barrel for this to be thriving. Okay. So add that to this. Moldova finally breaks with Gazprom. Gazprom-controlled company Moldova Gas has been stripped of its license to supply gas to Moldova. Things are already bad for Gazprom. Gas exports to Europe have reached historically low rates. The company supplied only 9.93 billion cubic meters of gas to Europe, nearly half of what it supplied last year at 18.3. Look, 9.93 is already 9.93 too much, but it's still half of what it did the year before, and that's significant. Remember, Russia is a gas station. More than a third of its budget is based on oil and gas revenue, and so this is going to hurt it in the pocketbook in a significant way. Now, there is some pushback. I showed you what Modi was saying yesterday, but I don't know that he's going to, like, the rhetoric was tough, but I don't know that he's going to do anything else. Look, the United States is India's largest trading partner. Okay, so do you want Russian oil or do you want to trade with the United States? And that's what it's going to amount to. And Lula is doing the same in Brazil. I won't subordinate to the dollar. Brazil is no longer dependent on the U.S. as it used to be. It won't let anyone dictate its economic policies. While the president does have the right to impose tariffs, Trump has crossed the line, Lula declares. But what's going to happen in 5 days when those tariffs are set to hit? Okay. India has snapped up 7 million barrels of U.S., Canadian, and Abu Dhabi oil for September delivery as state refiners halt Russian purchases. Now, are they still buying from the Russians? Yes, those are private refineries. State refiners have changed their tune. The move comes days after Trump slapped 25% tariffs on Indian imports and warned of penalties over Moscow's ties. Again, 5 more days to 100% tariffs. That's what Trump threatened. Whether it'll happen, we'll see. Okay, according to Reuters, India has urgently purchased U.S. crude to replace Russian supplies. The report states that Indian Oil Corporation, the country's largest oil refiner, has bought 7 million barrels, 4.5 million barrels of American crude, 500,000 barrels of Canadian, 2 million barrels sourced from the UAE. And the shift is linked to this Trump sanctions. Okay, so that's where they are. Again, they're still buying from the Russians, but there's more to the story here. Okay, now let's look at the rest of Russia's economy. Russian automakers are on the brink of disasters. KAMAZ reports a 218 million euro loss for the first half of 2025. In 2024, the loss was much smaller, around 36 million euros. Starting August 1st, KAMAZ switched to a 4-day work week due to a 30% drop in sales. Employees agreed to a salary reduction in order to retain their jobs. A salary reduction while inflation is going up. So yes, you have a 4-day work week, but inflation's going up and you can't pay for things. That's problematic. Other Russian automakers have also implemented similar measures. KAMAZ CEO noted that the company was built as a global entity with international partnerships, but sanctions due to the war in Ukraine led to the destabilization. That's right. They have to import a lot of things because they don't really manufacture very strongly in Russia. So they import a lot of parts from elsewhere around the world. Okay, and then this. He also accused Chinese manufacturers of unfair competition. China's the big winner here. Now, it's not all bleak for the Russian economy. While key sectors of the Russian economy are experiencing decline or a significant drop in profitability, some industries continue to show stable growth. For example, Russia's funeral services market posted double-digit growth in the first half of 2025. Revenues grew by 16%, reaching approximately 501 million. The number of newly registered companies rose by 16%, totaling 805 compared to the same period in 2024. In 2024, the total market volume for funeral homes reached 1.38 billion, with nominal growth of 7.7%. A significant portion of this industry actually operates off the books, so the actual figures might be even higher. So that's what's happening with the Russian economy. Darth Putin has posted this, where India urgently bought American oil from the U.S. instead of Russian oil, according to Reuters. I remain master strategist. We'll see how that plays out or what's going to happen, but it looks awfully bleak for Vladimir Putin. Okay, now I want to show you 3 surveys. First survey, I said in my reporting of the news in the war in Ukraine, I'm trying to provide context to help you understand what is actually happening. I try to be fair and give the benefit of the doubt. How have you experienced me? Okay. 5% of you said I'm biased in my presentation of the facts. Okay. And then 2% said that I'm more biased than other YouTubers, because I was trying to ask that a different way just to make sure that I covered my bases. So 7% of you said that. 63% of you said you have perspective or bias, but you do your best to check it. I really do. And then there is 29% of you that said I found you to be unbiased in your reporting. I don't even find me to be unbiased in my reporting. So 30% of you, thank you. I appreciate that. But I would place myself over here in the 63%. I tell you what my biases are, and then I try to mitigate my biases and show you and kick against them and test them. Okay, so that's survey number 1. Survey number 2. I said, I have an odd question. How many of you watch me versus listen to me? So my computer flipped out the other day. I had bad audio. I've just bought a new computer. It'll be here by the end of the week. And I've been like trying not to do that, but then I just decided I just have to. Okay. But 30% of you, 29% said, I watch closely. The visuals are very important. Okay, but that was my assumption. But then 53% said I kind of half watch, half listen, and a full 19% of you said I mostly listen to what you have to say. Visuals are unimportant. So if that's you, now I'm on all kinds of platforms. I have it syndicated to go to Apple Podcast, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, or Audible, iHeartRadio. Wherever you listen to podcasts, see if I'm there. Just type in Professor Gerdes Explains and see. Now, the third and final one is really important. In 6 days, that was yesterday, now it's 5 days. In 5 days now, Trump is supposed to add sanctions if Putin has not come to the table. I don't believe he's going to come to the table. These are 100% secondary sanctions on those who buy Russian oil, China, India, Brazil, etc. What will happen? Fully 81% of you think that Trump will postpone it for some time, and only 19% said Trump will impose those sanctions as he said. Well, we'll see what's going to happen. It'll be interesting. I fully understand if you don't believe it. This is a meme that I saw. President Trump is preparing brutal sanctions against Russia and allies. And it looks like this WWE guy in a wrestling match, like trying to make up his mind whether he's going to actually do something or not. Just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. If that's you, and you're skeptical, I understand. We'll see in 5 days, so stay tuned. Now, if you want to continue to get these updates, please hit the bell and subscribe. I do these every day. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.